Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we're taking a trip to a country that probably feels super familiar to a lot of us, but actually holds some secrets that completely defy logic. We're heading down to South America to explore a place that literally rewrites its own rules. You might think you have this nation all figured out, but the deeper we dig into the actual data and history, oh man, you quickly realize it's a place of constant invention and just massive surprises. I mean, think about it. Messi, tango, beef. Boom, an entire cultural identity instantly pops into your head, right? That's the Argentina everyone thinks they know. The unmatched football dominance, the passionate dancing, those legendary culinary exports. It's basically the standard highlight reel. And look, sure, those things are absolutely true and deeply ingrained in the culture there. But if we stop there, we're completely missing the bigger, way more fascinating picture. Because the real question we need to be asking today is, what about the things nobody expects? Right now, we're throwing the cliches right out the window. We are pivoting to look at a country that is constantly inventing, constantly surprising, and totally contradicting our most basic assumptions. So let's get into Section 1, Cultural Extremes, Uniquely Argentine Obsessions, and Surprising Inventions. Take the byrome, for example. That's actually the Argentine word for the ballpoint pen. For centuries, writers everywhere were dealing with leaky, totally messy fountain pens. It was a massive headache globally. But that problem, it was actually solved right here in 1943 by Laszlo Biro, a Hungarian inventor living in Argentina. He created the very first practical ballpoint pen. And the culture is so incredibly proud of this practical invention that not only do they still call pens byromes today, but they literally celebrate the entire country's Inventor's Day on his birthday, June 29th. How cool is that? And then there's the number 286. Now, this represents a completely different kind of cultural obsession. That is the number of psychologists per 100,000 people in Argentina, which is, by the way, the highest ratio anywhere on Earth. It completely blows away cities we normally associate with therapy, like New York or London or Paris. Going to therapy is just so deeply normalized down there that Argentinians openly call themselves the most psychoanalyzed people on Earth. It's just a totally standard part of everyday life. And speaking of deeply ingrained beliefs, get a load of this quote: "The ball must never be soiled." Now, this isn't just some catchy slogan. This is an actual, literal commandment from a religious institution. In the city of Rosario, there is a real church, founded back in 1998, called La Iglesia Maradoniana, or the Church of Maradona. It has its own prayers, its own commandments, and over 120,000 followers worldwide, dedicated entirely to football legend Diego Maradona. But okay, this brings up such a brilliant irony. On one hand, you have arguably the world's absolute most football-obsessed nation, complete with literal churches built for its players. But on the other hand, the actual official national sport is not football. No way. It's a game called pato. It dates all the way back to the 17th century. It's played on horseback, and the riders try to throw this bizarre six-handled ball through a raised hoop. So despite all that global football dominance, this centuries-old equestrian game actually holds the official title. All right, moving on to Section 2, Time and History and the Quirks and Irony that Shaped the Nation. This next fact is perhaps the greatest irony of them all. Argentum is actually the Latin word for silver. When the Spanish conquistadors first arrived, they were absolutely convinced they were going to find these vast, endless deposits of silver. So naturally, they named the place after it. The catch? They found way less than they were promised. Those massive silver deposits just weren't there. But the name stuck anyway, meaning Argentina is literally the only country in the world named after a mineral it barely even possesses. And the demographic history is honestly just as surprising. Despite being located right in South America, a staggering 97% of Argentina's population descends from European immigrants, predominantly Italian and Spanish. This completely flips what you might naturally expect for the region. It's exactly why Buenos Aires is so often called the most European city outside of Europe, and why that Italian influence runs so extraordinarily deep in their everyday language and world-famous cuisine. So the really crucial point here is that this is a country that just likes to do things its own way, even when it comes to the fundamental concept of time itself. The geography there is so vast that it naturally stretches across 4 separate time zones. But the government just decided, you know what? No, we're doing one nationwide clock. So depending on where you're standing in the country, the sun rises and sets at wildly different times of the day, completely ignoring the natural solar cycle, just so every single clock in the nation can show the exact same time. It's wild. That brings us to Section 3, Geographical Rule Breakers, Defying the Laws of Nature. Get ready for a genuinely mind-blowing contrast. Globally, we know glaciers are shrinking rapidly, but down in Argentina, the Perito Moreno Glacier in Patagonia is completely defying that global trend. It is actually advancing, like growing by as much as 2 meters every single day. Instead of retreating, it's expanding, securing its place as the third largest freshwater reserve in the entire world. And if you travel as far south as you can possibly go in Argentine Patagonia, you literally hit the edge of the world. Ushuaia. It is widely considered the southernmost city on Earth. It sits right there at the very tip of South America, serving as the ultimate gateway to Antarctica, exactly where the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans finally meet. And finally, consider this geographical extreme. Mount Aconcagua, standing at 6,961 meters high, is the highest peak in both the western and southern hemispheres. But just a few hundred kilometers away from that soaring peak, you have Laguna del Carbón, which is the lowest point in all of the Americas. Argentina is literally the only country on planet Earth that contains both the highest continental peak and the lowest continental valley in its hemisphere. Just let that sink in for a second. So when we look at the big picture here, we really have to reframe everything we thought we knew. It's not just Messi, tango, and beef. It is a country of absolute extremes unlike anywhere else on Earth. A place with the highest peaks and the lowest valleys. A place where a glacier actively grows, where a footballer gets his own literal religion, and where there are more therapists per capita than anywhere else on the globe. There is simply nowhere quite like it. And honestly, it really makes you wonder. If a country this famous has this many unexpected secrets hiding in plain sight, what on earth are the rest of the countries hiding from us? Thanks for hanging out with us for this explainer. We'll see you next time.